Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got Gas, an afternoon edition. With me is Bob Alderman, and we're going to talk sprint cars today.
What's up, Bob?
Not much. We had a great time this last weekend, though.
We had an incredible time.
The Turkey Grand Prix.
Turkey Night Grand Prix. It's usually on Thanksgiving every year. This year it was on Friday and Saturday. They did a 2-day show. They included sprint cars.
Yeah.
It was epic.
Good. Yeah, it was. I mean,
the sprint car part was kind of, it was different. They run sprint cars and midget shows together all the time, but with Turkey Night, it's always been, Thursday night, all about the midgets.
Right.
So I'm sure there's going to be controversy.
Yeah, so J.C. Agajanian and his brother Chris put this on every year. It's been at different tracks, but for the last few years, they brought it to Ventura on the dirt.
Yes.
It's run Paris on the dirt. Did all right. It ran Irwindale on the asphalt.
Irwindale. I don't know how many years. I went down there.
I went down
there a few times.
Yeah, I was there at Irwindale. It was my wife's first experience seeing sprint cars. Had no clue what they were.
And saw them on the pavement.
And then saw them on the pavement, and it's
Different
okay.
Animal.
Different animal. The noise was there.
Yeah.
It was clean. It was dust-free.
Right.
It was a whole different situation. This year, you took us into the pit grandstands, or not even grandstands. We all stood. And she didn't know what to expect. We gave her an idea, but then after the cars ran the first turn and we got pelted with the clay, she fell in love with it.
Yeah.
That was the fun of it. So, the first night we went, she got pelted, no hat, no, real protective type clothing, so to speak. The next night she came out, she had a hood, she had a hat, she was ready to go.
And you weren't coming out the next night.
I didn't think I was going to be able to make it, but we made it. She made sure we made it. We went to Thanksgiving at in-laws, and then we went to my grandson's birthday.
Yeah, all those grandsons.
So first birthday, we were there for about 3 hours, and that's when all the younger folks started really gathering, and they didn't need us old guys there. So we left, and we made it up to Turkey Night.
Well, you were at the right place. You were exactly where you needed to be.
All right. So let's talk about sprint cars, because I remember when I was a kid, it wasn't called sprint cars to me. It was called champ cars, and they were racing on the dirt. A.J. Foyt, Rutherford, they were on the dirt, and they had what looked like, to me, Indy cars.
They ran roadsters at Indy back then.
Right.
And then the champ cars were they weren't the actual Indy cars that they ran on the pavement.
Speed, yeah.
And I could be wrong, but that's where the champ car came from.
Okay.
And they called them the big cars and this and that, but they had 3 USAC divisions. They had champ cars, sprint cars, and midgets.
Okay.
And there's been a few guys that have won all 3 of those in 1 year, including Tony Stewart. And I'm so sorry I can't remember the other ones, but huge accomplishment. But the champ cars were basically like the Indy Roadsters way back in the day.
My first indoctrination to sprint cars, as they kind of are today, was I traveled a couple of times with Tommy Hunt from Hunt Magnetos. He later became the head of USAC, but I went to Ascot, and Ascot was a magical place to me. It was the first dirt track I'd ever gone to, but it was where the history was made. Ascot Park, I watched it on TV when I was a kid every Sunday. Dick Lane would do the jalopy broadcasts on local TV here in Los Angeles area, and I got the jalopy races, which it's a bad name.
You can feel the history of Ascot.
Yeah.
Not when you're there, not anymore, unfortunately, but every time you were at Ascot, there was always somebody working somewhere.
Yeah.
This guy was standing over there, or somebody showed up, and Johnny Parsons was driving the pace car, and on and on and on. It had a tremendous history, and I remember being a kid, we lived in Lakewood, and my father would take me to Ascot, and I saw Parnelli and Mario and AJ running the same main event.
Wow.
Epic.
I was 16 when I went to Ascot for the first time. And a buddy of mine and I don't remember why we were down there. It wasn't on purpose. But we snuck in the pit gate. And I was hooked after that. And I started reading more about that and reading about the racers. And now I could identify with it. It wasn't just watching it on TV. I was there. I was lucky enough in the late 1970s to work for Stock Car Magazine, and Dick Berggren hooked me up with Tommy Hunt. Hunt gave me the passes, and I got down there. I stood on the inside of turn 1 photographing cars going into the corners. I ran out of film before I ran out of enthusiasm, and I stayed in the corner. No one knew I was out of film, but I stayed there.
Yeah, because you don't want to leave.
No, and I was on the inside of the turn. I had never been that close to racing in my life, other than the autocrossing and some SCCA stuff I was doing. But to be in the throes of pro racing,
Grassroots.
it was amazing. Now, how did you get into driving sprint cars?
Oh, wow. I raced when I was a kid for a long time. I raced motocross, I raced off-road cars, I raced go-karts, I raced TQs. I quit racing for a while, you know, with the family, the business, and all that. Kind of lost touch with it. And then I was doing a project by Ventura Raceway, and I heard the sprint cars. And I hadn't been to a sprint car race in a few years, and I hadn't raced for a few years. It'd been a while. And I called my wife, and I said, I'm going to be late. I'm going to go over to Ventura. So I went over to Ventura. I bought a pit pass. I was walking around the pits. I didn't really know anybody. And then all of a sudden, I run into this guy I used to race go-karts with, and he's racing sprint cars.
Oh, okay.
And it was cool, Jim Porter. And it was very cool. And I said, so do I need one of these? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, yeah, you need one of these. So I was walking around the pits, and it was actually the last race of the season. And I went up in the pit stands, or the regular stands. I went in the pit stands, I went up in the stands, and I was watching all of this. And there was a particular car out there that had a for sale sign on it, and the guy was running pretty good. And I approached him after the race, and we made a deal. And I went home, and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go out and look at this sprint car tomorrow. I didn't tell her that I'd already, made the deal. But anyway, she goes, well, I want to go with you. I said, okay, perfect, go with me. So she goes with me, and I mean, Bob, it's a trailer.
Yeah.
It's got tires hanging. It's got a tool bench. It's got a sprint car in it. It's got all this stuff in it. And I'm just like a kid in a candy store. And Nuts and Bolts is over there asking the guy who I bought it from, very common sense, practical questions that I didn't care about, because I know a little bit about racing. Yeah. And she says, so how much time do you spend on it when, between races? What do what do you have to do to the car? I'll never forget this. I get up early on Sunday morning before the family gets up. Yeah. And I roll the car out, and I wash it, and I dry it off, and I spray all the heims with WD-40, and I do this and I do that, and I roll it back into the trailer, and I go racing the next week. And I went, wow, good for you. So my rookie season, rolled it out of the car, trailer, did this, back in the trailer. So about halfway through the season, right before the break, we had to do the motor. Yeah. So that was that was my introduction to maintenance. Okay. And, but it was probably one of my best years. We were 6th in the points and Rookie of the Year that year. So just by having fun, basically, and learning and this and that. But then, the following year we had a brand new car. We had a crew, we had parts, we had this, we had that, and we had a, I think we did the math one night, and between hot laps, wheel packing, practice, all that nonsense, heat races, that car runs for maybe 10 minutes all night. Yeah. All night. So you're in 20 lap mains at, 11 to 13 seconds. Yeah. It goes by quickly, So, and the maintenance on those things is just it's good. It's awesome. I mean, it's a good thing to know. It's a good thing to learn. But you learn that you have to touch every part of a race car after every race to do your proper maintenance.
Right.
Because you always run across something else. So that's how I got into sprint car racing.
All right, how long did you race sprint cars?
11 years.
11 years, and you were very successful.
I was
you were
okay.
you were rookie of the year at Ventura, and you went on and we met a whole lot of people this last weekend, and you have left a legacy, and people remembered you, like, well, you were one of the stars of sprint cars.
It was
here on the West Coast.
Really humbling for me to go to that race on Friday. I haven't been to a sprint car race since the night I had to quit because of my cancer. And I didn't see any of that coming.
Okay.
It was very humbling.
Yeah.
And it was a great night. I mean, we got to hang out with Naylor and Agajanian in the booth up there when they were doing their interview.
In the announcing booth. That was great. Got a great bird's eye view of what was going on.
Yeah.
But then we got down into the stands with everybody. And we ended up with Barry from Storage Wars.
Oh, Barry Weiss.
Barry Weiss. We were with him for a while. Chase Elliott for a while.
Chase was awesome.
And then a guy who you kiddingly but in somewhat truthfully told me he was a prick, but he just dominated in the race on Friday night.
Yeah, the 10 lap dash to get into the first 10 cars for the main event on Saturday.
And with a Ford powered car. Now this is
Ford.
But it's still a Ford. This is a dominated class by Chevrolets. There was not another Ford to be seen in the pits.
I'll tell you what, that main event, if my humble opinion, if there wouldn't have been quite as many yellows, and he could have kept that momentum up he had going, he would have won Saturday night too. Yeah,
because halfway through the race, they weren't catching him. No. That Ford was out in front, which makes it difficult to understand why no one else is looking at Fords. Now, I've looked at this, and we see this in drag racing as well. Junior Fuel, for example, dominated by Chevrolets. Top Fuel, dominated by Hemis. Here's a class, a sprint car series that's basically been Chevys for decades. And here comes the upstart Ford. And he blew them away.
I don't know if it's upstart because I remember several times in sprint car history where they've run different motors. I mean, they ran a big block Chevy one time. I think Rip Williams drove it for a minute. There's been Fords, there's all that.
But no one ran that quickly.
Nothing. There was even a Chrysler was in there for a minute.
Yeah,
or a Dodge. But that motor the other night, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, because we were looking at it after he won the race, and we're walking back up to the car, and I remember you and I discussing it. I'm looking at the exhaust pipes, and I go, "There's something wrong here. We didn't know it was a Ford. There's nothing outside that identifies it as a Ford." And I'm looking at the exhaust pipe spacing, and I go, "This isn't a Chevy. They're not Siamese in the middle." And that's when we found out it was a Ford. And he was just out running, like you were saying, it was a 360 car, but he was running with the 410s.
Yeah.
So he was beating the bigger engined cars. And then in the main on Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, he came in fourth. But it was only because of a bad restart for him.
It was a bad restart. But and Bob, you got to understand something. When you set those cars up, you try and set them up for the end of the race.
Right.
So sometimes they're a handful in the beginning, but it comes to you. So I didn't see him fading at all. I saw a couple yellow flags late in the race where they brought him back together, and those other guys' cars might have been working just that much better at the end.
Yeah, it was close. Even in fourth position, he was
right there,
right there on their tail.
He was right there.
He was right with them. Now, all right, we went from the sprint cars to what this event was all
good
about.
For him. I mean, I listen.
Why don't we tell him who he was?
He could have blocked.
Yeah, he could have. Now, what was the driver's name?
It was Troy Rutherford.
Troy Rutherford. Okay, so we didn't mention that earlier, and
I was going to mention it.
Yeah, we have to, but
was going to put it in the credits.
Put it in the credit. There we go. All right, so we went from sprint cars to what this event was really about, was the midgets. And the midgets, I remember, and we were talking, I got to meet, because of you, Sleepy Trip and Sonny Nutter and a few other guys. Haywood, and one gentleman who was
Olson.
A legend in sprint car racing.
Jimmy Oskey.
Jimmy Oskey.
7-time champion.
Yeah, and, you walk up to him on the street, you would have never known. This guy's a, skinny little guy. I mean, he probably puts quarters in his pocket to hold them down on windy days. But we went from the sprint cars and meeting these guys to midgets.
Yeah, my buddy Sonny Nutter called me.
Yeah.
And said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "I'm going to the sprint car races," and I was going to live the whole experience again. I wanted to get there when the pits opened.
Right.
I wanted to, drivers meeting. I just wanted to do all that stuff, without driving.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, I'm glad." He goes, "Well, I got some guys coming over tomorrow, man. I'd really like you to be here." And he listed the guys, and that was quite a group of guys.
It was.
And I was supposed to meet you at the sprint car races.
Right.
And I let you know that I might be a little bit late.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, "Well, would I be imposing if I could come?" I said, "Absolutely not." So we went down and hung with these guys together.
Right.
And it was awesome. It was great. I mean,
yeah.
the story. Anyway, nobody tells stories like race car drivers.
No.
And the older we get, the better we were.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I remember, and I talked to Sleepy. I had met Sleepy Trip when I was announcing at Bakersfield Speedway in the early 1990s. It was his last full season of racing. He, PJ, and Paige Jones were the top 3 drivers.
Yeah.
I had followed Sleepy's exploiting or whatever his events. He was driving Volkswagen-powered midgets, and he was dominating everybody. And at the time that I met him, he was probably at the peak of his career.
I think he won 150 races.
Yeah, and it was only because of the change in engines. Now, there's a class where one engine wasn't the engine of choice. You had various engines, and he showed that Volkswagen engines could be very competitive because they were sitting down low. They were lightweight. He was less weight than every other car out there, and he could run right there with the big guys. But then you get the money, and Paige and PJ were running Cosworth motors at the time. Chevrolet got in there with the Iron Duke motors. They laid them over on the side. They worked pretty good for a while. But now, half a V8 Toyota is the dominant motor, but wasn't the only one out there.
And that Chevy was a cut in half V8.
There were 2 different versions.
Yeah.
There was the inline 4 that was half a V8, but there was the V4 where they lopped off the middle 2 cylinders, welded the block back together again, and you had a V4, and it worked quite well.
Isn't that awesome?
It is, but it was engineering and innovation that I really loved about that category. Now, Sleepy, we were talking to Sleepy, and he said, "Well, yeah, the money at $70,000 an engine for a Toyota 4-cylinder, it's put so many people out of that category. But boy, do those cars sing!"
$15,000 to freshen it, and you freshen it every 300 laps. Is that what he said?
Yeah, something like that. But we're talking $70,000 for an engine.
It's like eight nights.
Yeah, I mean that's unfathomable. So the transport, now this is big time racing, regardless of whether it's grassroots. You got to have a lot of money, you got to have a lot of sponsorship to go racing competitively. But there are guys there that are still running different engines. They are, I don't want to call them also rans, but they were out there competing and charging as hard as they could. One thing we talked about with a couple of the drivers was, here's a whole line of Toyota racing that I bet the average kid doesn't know about.
Absolutely not.
And we've got to get the word out to these guys that Toyota's not just front-wheel drive Ricky Racer cars. They're not just road course cars. There's other forms of racing, and Toyota is part of it. No one seems to know that. You talk to youngsters these days, they have no clue what a midget car is. They have no clue what a sprint car is. It hasn't got doors. It hasn't got fenders. They don't know, no air conditioning or an automatic transmission.
You know, you're absolutely right, and I think that I think these kids need to get into racing through go-karts, quarter midgets, all that.
Yeah.
The parent has to have an interest in racing to do that with the kids that young.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's parents that never raced that did that with their kids, you know, and I'm not sure they never raced, but you know, look at Kyle Larson.
Yeah.
That kid's been racing since he could walk.
Yeah.
And you know, his father did that. I mean, all the races. And I raced against Kyle a few times at Santa Maria, and when he was young, when he was a kid, and he was always polite. He was always fast. We saw him at Turkey Night.
Right.
And, you know, him and Chase, all they had to do was walk outside the trailers, and they just had a big crowd around him for autographs and stuff. But when the races got going, and you were with me when we were in the pit stands, other racers don't bother racers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got 2 NASCAR champions 2 years in a row sitting in the pit stands most of the night. And Kyle was up there watching hot laps, practices, the ones he wasn't involved in. There were a lot of cars, so he had to, you know, there was a lot of time between when you ran and when you know, your next time up. He was up there with a stopwatch and he was timing everybody. I mean, he's a racer, you know, and he was raised like that.
Yeah.
Just like the second generation racers, but he's a first generation racer.
Yes.
And you know, Dale Earnhardt, the great Dale Earnhardt, was even second generation.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got this kid coming up right now. I mean, he's already the GOAT of this decade.
Yeah, no, we saw Chase Elliott and Larson out during practice. And at practice, the pressure's not on. People pretty much stay away from you. You get to go out and you get to lap. They were really fast in practice. When it came time for the event, though, they kind of stayed out of trouble. They didn't really push hard. They were more like they were learning.
Well, I want to
figuring things out.
I want to address the Chase Elliott thing.
Okay.
I heard a lot of grumbling going on, you know, in the main event when he was running in the back, towards the back, and you know, I don't know where he finished, but you know, he finished. He made the main event. This is a guy that has, and I don't know the number for sure. I don't want to be misquoted. I can't imagine him having more than 6 or 7 midget races under his belt.
Right.
If.
Yeah.
He has a great teacher. He has a great mentor, and Kyle. And he made the main event.
Yes, he did.
I know guys that are veterans that have won championships, that have done this and have done that didn't make the main event on Saturday.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was fast.
Yeah, he was.
And there's only this much between, you know, first and last sometimes. And he was really impressive. He never got in anybody's way. He fought for his positions when they were his positions, but I thought he did a great job.
All right, he was doing great out there. The racing was great.
But the kids need to. I think it's great that Chase and Larson, long story short, are influencing younger kids to get into dirt racing.
Well, just other aspects of racing. And you and I have talked. My background is different than yours, but we've been involved with racing for decades, since we were kids, to an extent. Racing is racing. It's your choice as to what aspect of it you want to get into, but get into it and bring others in with you.
Absolutely.
You know, expose them to this. I've been car crazy, so I've never had any one direction. I've taken driving schools from Fast Jack Beckman in a dragster. I've done.
How was that?
Oh, that was amazing.
I
love the burnout part. And I did all right.
Did it pin you?
Yeah, I did. And I loved that. The rapid acceleration is great.
You're strapped in really tight.
That's it.
But I got to tell you, like bigger sprint car tracks, like half mile
Yeah.
tracks, like at Paris, and
Yeah.
your car's right, and you come off the corner, and
That
everything's
acceleration.
working, it just pins you.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I did Bondurant school. I did sports car racing.
Rest in peace.
I did SCCA driver schools. I've done NASCAR driver school at Irwindale. I even put my wife through the NASCAR school at Irwindale so she can get an idea of handling characteristics and driving. And I think we need to expose more people to that so that there's less objections or, oh, you've got a car that's noisy. Someone I know, we took him to a race, and his question was, why do people make their cars so noisy?
My boyfriend-in-law, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't understand it.
I took him to I took him to Irwindale. You were there that night. He'd never been to a race before. His stepbrother is gamer. He just won the mini sprint championship this year as a rookie.
Oh, okay.
I believe. I know he was rookie of the year. Maybe it was his second year. But I brought him to the races, and it was like, God, I just don't get the noise. I don't understand why it's got to be so loud. And I said, well, that's horsepower.
Yeah, it's engines.
Yeah,
it's part of the allure of it.
It's an explosion.
Yeah,
some explosions are louder than others.
Yeah, if you go to a concert, is the music not loud?
Yeah,
that's basically the music of racing. All right, sprint cars, racing. Now let's move on to another form of racing, and you've gotten involved with Bonneville racing or land speed record racing.
I have.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's a really long story. I'm going to fast forward it. I ran Bonneville this year, 2021, as a rookie. We licensed up there. We were supposed to do it at El Mirage. It didn't happen. They canceled the last meet. It was too hot. But I was trying to get in something that I could get a record in. Because since I came out of treatment and since I started feeling better, I've been doing things, as you know.
Right.
And it hasn't really been that long. My last treatment was Zofigo, and after that, I did my recovery time, and my actual chemo brain kind of went away a little bit. A friend of mine called with a 2-engine go-kart, and he was having a track day, going to a track day. He wanted to go, and I didn't feel like going. I didn't think I should go, and I went. But anyway, it was awesome. It was the best thing I could have done. Got in a sprint car to track day with Biggie, the Speed Demon. I built the Speed Demon. That was awesome. Started talking to Biggie about land speed racing. He's got the Speed Demon thing. I love Biggie. He's just one of those guys. And I decided that, I think I want to go do that. It's always been on my bucket list.
Okay.
So he knows people. He knows a guy that knows a guy always. So I was trying to get into something, and it was really short notice. And he was willing to give up his seat in that, and we didn't even go there. That wasn't happening.
Right.
That's how big a heart Biggie has. So anyway, I got introduced to these people, and they're in the Rod Riders. My friend Mike Cook was in the Rod Riders. Rest in peace. And he got me into the Rod Riders, and I met these people, and Holly works for Biggie, and on and on and on. So one thing led to another, and I went out to El Mirage a couple times, and kind of got bit,
Yeah.
So Holly said, well, listen, I got these two friends, Tony and Chick Huntmere, and she's my best friend, and they've got this roadster, and they haven't been to Bonneville for years. Mom has dementia, and they have to take care of her and this and that. But the interesting part for me was that Tony had cancer 20 years ago on his deathbed, saying his goodbyes, and somebody came up with the pill that 20 years later he's still alive.
Yeah.
I didn't know Tony before, but from what I understand, he couldn't race anymore. So Chick, his wife, crazy woman, wild woman, she drove. And she's 70 years old. She's going to be 71 years old this year at Bonneville, which
Good.
is awesome. And she's awesome. She's a real deal. She's a racer. So we meet, and I go to their house, and I meet Tony, and I put my hand out, and I've got my coffee, and my son. I'm dressed nicer than usual because I have to meet a car owner.
Yeah.
And I met him and shook his hand and said, I got mad respect for what you've done. And he goes, yeah, what's that? I said, well, your journey with your cancer and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, anyway, listen, if I think you're not listening, and if I see you glazing over, if I think you're glazing over, we're done. And I went, oh, okay. So, being a rookie, and not being in a race car in 5 years,
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of hand. I didn't have any control over that situation, so I just had to humbly stand there and get my ass kicked by Tony.
Okay.
And by the end of the day, we were okay. I fit in the car, and, I took my glasses off, put my coffee down, I paid total attention to him. I did all that. So, we're going to go to El Mirage, and we're going to license up. That way, I'll have a few licenses before I go to Bonneville, and I won't have to get that part done when I get there, if by some chance I get into something.
Right.
So, we go out to El Mirage for a test day. Tony was a Bonneville official, SCTA, and they hadn't been able to go to the races for a while. And so we went out to El Mirage, and there were a couple of officials came out. There was another woman out there that wanted to drive the car as a rookie, Renee. She's awesome. She is an SCTA tech official with her husband, Mike. So they're out there, and then these other guys are out there. So I got some stuff done. I got my bailout done. I got a few other things done that I wouldn't have to do. And, Tony was great, all right, let's make a pass. Okay, what do you want me to do? You have to push those cars to get them going because the gears are so high.
Yeah.
So, first gear, you go out the clutch. All right, I want you to go 4,000 RPM, shift, 4,000 RPM, shift, 4,000 RPM, shift. And it's a 5-speed.
Okay.
So, all right, so when I get into fifth gear, do I just go up to 4,000 RPM and shut it off? Yeah, okay. You want me to just turn around and drive it back here to the, to the truck? No, I'm gonna have to push you, and it was all pretty official. And so I do my deal, and you can't downshift those cars, that particular car. It's a Winco, 5-speed. It's just up, back, no reverse. So I get up to 4,000 RPM. I put the clutch in, no parachute, and get it slowed down enough to turn onto the return, not a return road, but make the U-turn to where he can come up behind me and push me back or put the strap on or whatever he's going to do. And I got the clutch in, the car's still running. He pulls up next to me and he's like, just drive it back. So now I'm in fifth gear, running, I don't know, slow.
Yeah.
And lugging. So I get it back up on the RPM a little bit, and I get it back to the pit thing. So he comes back, and I want to make more passes, and I want to learn, and I want to do this and do that. And he's in his chair, and I'm sitting across from him, and I'm talking to him, and he's just rude. He's just not answering me.
Yeah.
I'm like sitting there thinking, boy, this guy's a tough room, right?
Yeah.
Well, Chick comes around the corner as I'm talking to him, and she kind of looks at me and smiles, and she goes, Bob, he's been asleep for 20 minutes. he just goes to sleep.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So now I can't license up because they canceled the next meet.
All right. Okay.
All right. So hey, listen, are you guys going to Bonneville? No, we can't go to Bonneville. You know, got to take care of mom, this and that and the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's that look like? So we figured all that out, and we ended up at Bonneville. So I drove and took my son. My son was in Philadelphia. We were supposed to pick him up at the airport. It was his birthday that week, 40th birthday.
Okay.
How friggin' old do I feel? So I was going to pick him up in Vegas, so he didn't have to fly all the way to LA. And I rented a motorhome, and we flat towed a Jeep for the pit car, and off we go. And I decide that I'm going to ask Bobby's best friend from childhood, who they're still best friends, if he wants to go, and we'll surprise Bobby. So he went. So when we picked up Bobby at Las Vegas, Derek was sitting in the front seat. It was awesome. But during that whole time, Bobby's flight got delayed. Bobby's flight got canceled. Bobby had to get another flight. He got the last seat. We were supposed to pick him up in the morning. He didn't get there until 7 o'clock at night.
Oh.
I had to be in Bonneville the next day for the driver's meeting. And off we went, and, you know, a couple flat tires on the Jeep and this and that and the other thing. We rolled into the salt flats at Bend in the Road at 5:30 in the morning, and the driver's meeting was like at 9 or 10. So I didn't sleep. I just unloaded the Jeep. I did this, I did that, and we didn't even do that. We drove the motorhome to the driver's meeting, and it was so overwhelming to see that salt for the first time.
Yes.
And to see how the stands are set up for the officials. They had a couple trophies there, one for George Petit and one for a motorcycle guy.
Right.
And they were gorgeous. Oh my gosh. And all these people and all this crowd, and it just started, and I went to the driver's meeting, and it was really humbling because, you know, you're standing there with icons.
Yeah.
You know. So Tony finds me, and I have to do a rookie meeting. So I get in his truck, and I just want to go to sleep, you know. And so he takes me to the rookie meeting, 75 rookies, and I'm watching him, you know, and he's so into all of it, you know. He was just so happy to be there.
Yeah.
And you could tell. And he does the calendar, the annual calendar for Bonneville. He's a photographer.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know how that all came about, but you know, I'll find out and I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But anyway, so they go there. I can't get in the car till Tuesday because they got to set up their Easy Up, and they're selling calendars and they're this and they're that, right? Well, we go and we're hanging out with them, and we're helping them, and I'm looking at Bonneville, and I'm watching some runs, and I'm figuring all this stuff out. And, you know, the reception those people got was amazing. Selling their calendars, doing this and doing that, right? So we get back from Bonneville, we decide that we're going to run some El Mirage stuff next year. And I really want to get my red hat.
Yeah.
That's, you know, not for any other reason than I'm a racer. And that's what's happening. Are we in trouble?
No, just lost some for lighting.
Oh, cool.
Nothing serious.
Can you still hear us?
Yeah, I think you still see us. Hi there, folks.
So anyway, we're going to do that. So in the meantime, a few months pass. Tony's mom passes a few months ago.
Right.
Chick texts me that Tony's having some issues.
Okay.
I said, okay. So, what do we need to do? You know, come down there, get him. What do you need? You know.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to get too personal with this, but you know, it went from this to this to this.
Right.
And then I went out to El Mirage 3 days later for a meet, and I went out there really early in the morning, and you know, it's a 2-hour drive from my house, and I hung out with who I needed to hang out with, and I was talking to Chick on the texting, you know, how's Tony, what's going on? Well, she was telling me what's going on, and it was happening quickly, and do we need light?
No, we got it.
It every day it was you know, well, Tony's only saying 3 words. He says, yeah, sure, and okay. And, well, what's going on? It's either Alzheimer's or dementia, you know, okay. So I left El Mirage Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I drove another hour and a half, 2 hours to Redlands, to Tony and Chick's house. So I went in, I sat down with Chick, and she was telling me what was going on, and Tony had dementia, and they didn't really realize it, you know, and his mom, they, you know, on Faster Than Cancer, we're going to talk about caregiving, and you know, Chick was caregiving Mom and caregiving Tony. So she had dementia here and cancer survivor here.
Right.
Well, when you're a cancer survivor, it's a whole different life. It's a whole different deal.
Yeah.
So we go to Bonneville and come back, and you know, I quickly realized at Bonneville that trip wasn't about me. We put that together quickly.
Right.
You don't just a few months before Bonneville go, hey, you know, I think I'm going to go run Bonneville. And we put that deal together, and with their help, and I had help from some other people, and PCRI, Prostate Cancer Research Institute, helped us out. Bear helped us out. So we got to Bonneville, and when I went to the house, I sat down with Chick, and she was telling me what was going on, and it was really hard, you know, especially having I still don't believe it, a terminal situation. But we talked, and she says, do you want to see him? I said, absolutely. So we go in the bedroom, and he's in bed, and she says, Bob, I'm going to warn you, he's not going to know who you are. He only says 3 words, and you know, I'm going to have to wake him up. And I said, that's okay, no worries. So I go in there, she wakes him up, she's standing against the wall, I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, and he's looking at me, you know, and just kind of looking, and I said, you know, I did the usual, you know, gave him a bunch of shit, you know, what are you doing, we got shit to do, get out of here, get out of bed, you know, and it was much further along than that, right? So I leaned down and I said, you know, Tony, I know you probably don't know who I am. I said, but I'm Bob. And he smiled, and he looked at me, and he said, I know who you are.
That's good.
It blew me away.
Yeah.
And I haven't talked to Chick about that, but I'm sure it blew her away too.
Yeah.
So I took his hand, and we had a little conversation, and I told him that, you know, we talked about getting a record, and Chick and I were going to go get that record, you know, and off I went. So we go out, and we're sitting in the living room, and I said, okay, Chick, listen, as somebody who's been sick and, you know, had to circle the drain for a while and you know, watch things disappear, are you okay insurance-wise, financially, your house payment, everything good? Yeah, I'm good. Everything's good, you know, blah, blah, blah. All right, listen, what are you going to do? You know, I mean, I know it's premature, but what's that look like for you, Chuck? Because they were a team. Yeah. You know? And she goes, oh, I don't know, you know, I've got, you know, my hot rod stuff and, you know, Bible study and this and that. And I said, oh, that's all good stuff. She goes, I'm not going to be able to race anymore. And I said, well, do you want to race? And she said, well, I'm a racer. And I said, all right, let's go racing. And I said, how fast does that car go? Because it broke at Bonneville before we got to that point. What's the record? It's 182 miles an hour. Okay. How fast does that car go? 167, whatever. And it's a straight 6 truck motor with a blower on it, right?
Yeah, we were talking about that. A 300 Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy motor. Badass. It was so cool. The sound of it. But anyway, I said, can we put a V8 in that car? And she goes, well, we'd have to change classes. I said, okay. I said, you know, Chick, I'm going to make a deal to get into something at Bonneville this year. my whole goal is a 200-mile-an-hour deal. You know? And we got the record book out, and we were looking at classes, and we determined what class we needed to run. And it runs on a low 200-mile-an-hour record. I don't want to say exactly what it is right now, but it runs on a lower 200-mile-an-hour record, which is doable. Now, the class is a V8. You run a V8.
Right.
It has to be an iron block, iron heads, pre-73 block.
Okay.
Car or light truck motor.
Okay.
Steel heads. Carbureted. No electronic stuff, computer stuff, or mechanical fuel injection. So we're going to 377 class. So we're gonna we have a block, we have heads, pre-73. I think right now the plan is that we're going to get a freshened up used sprint car motor.
Okay.
Because they have the
That's
best of the best in
horsepower.
them.
Yeah.
You know. And we're going to marry the parts to the block.
Okay.
And we're going to run the, mechanical fuel injection with the stack sticking out of the hood.
Right.
I can't friggin' wait. And we are going to... Tony passed.
Been about 2 weeks now, hasn't
A
it?
couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. So anyway, moving forward, Chick and I are going to keep the Salt Circus legacy going, which
Good.
I didn't even know it had a legacy.
Yeah.
But when I did my research on it, I just wanted to drive it.
Okay.
It was like a one-time deal, maybe. And after meeting those people and going through Bonneville with them and going through this with them and seeing who they are, I bonded with Tony on a different level than I would bond with someone else because of what he went through.
Sure.
It's a club that nobody wants to be in, but when
Right.
you're in it, you finish each other's sentences. So we're going to keep that going, and we're going to put a quick change rear end in it, and we're going to go through the whole car and nut and bolt everything with the aircraft nuts and bolts. We're going to touch everything. We're not going to touch the paint. We're going to leave it the way it is.
All the mechanical stuff, right?
It's all the mechanical stuff, and we're going to keep it simple, and we're going to get this salt shaker into the 200-mile-an-hour deal at Bonneville.
Back in the record books.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
I'm a racer. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a goal.
All right.
And I'm hoping that we leave Bonneville with two hats, because
That'd be nice.
one of us could break the record and the other one could break that record.
Right.
And I'm thinking we should probably try and get three. And
Work for it.
give one to Tony.
There you go.
And this is I'm not pursuing any other stuff. This is it. We're doing the Roadster. We're going to Bonneville. We're going to go for our red hats. And it's going to be Tony, Chick, and myself.
There you go.
Tony's the car owner. Chick is the car owner. I am the team manager / driver.
You're the hired gun.
I'm the hired guy. Not hired. I don't get paid.
I didn't say you get paid, but you're going to do it.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna go out there like old school racers, and Chick said, you can just pick that car up. I trust you. Blah blah blah. I said, no way.
Yeah.
Driving down there, pull the motor out. She can work on that car better than I can. And I said, everything you know about it, Tony taught you, you'll teach me. We'll go to Bonneville and we'll know every single thing about that car. When I was racing my sprint car, that car came apart every single week.
Yeah.
And, it's a maintenance program.
It's a maintenance, yeah.
So we're going to shake it down at El Mirage. The record at El Mirage is
It's quite a bit lower. We've talked about this. And El Mirage, you're looking at a 1.2, a 1.3 course.
1.6.
1.6 miles versus 7 miles.
5 miles.
Or 5 miles, depending on which course.
No, it's 5 miles.
Okay,
5 miles is the longest one.
Total 7 miles to shut down and everything.
Yeah, and sometimes it's 9 miles, sometimes it's 7 miles.
Yeah,
This
it
year
just
was
depends.
9 miles.
So El Mirage is a whole different thing. Getting to 200 miles an hour at El Mirage is an extremely difficult feat because it's so short and the surface is so different.
Slippery.
Slippery, yeah.
Dusty.
Dusty, yeah, boy, was it dusty. Took me 2 runs through the pressure washer to get my car clean. But anyway, that's the goal. All right, let's talk about this more another time.
Okay.
We've been talking to people out there.
I'm so sorry.
Thanks for watching.
Long.
Yeah, we were fine. Thanks for watching GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene with Bob Alderman.
And early detection, guys.
Yeah,
you got to do it. And by the way, one more thing. One more thing. Doctor yesterday, my first Lupron vacation, 3.5 years, over Christmas holidays, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody on Lupron that knows anybody on Lupron, that on and on and on, you know, the side effects aren't good. But with attitude, hard work, dedication, diet, passion, on and on and on, you get a Lupron vacation every now and then.
And you can be faster than cancer. We'll talk more about faster than cancer later on. I'm Hot Rod Bob. We're coming to you live from the GAAS trailer. Decided to do something a little bit different. I hope you enjoyed it.
It's awesome.
I'm Hot Rod Bob, Bob Alderman. You've got GAAS, a special edition today on Thursday. Have a great day, everybody. All right, now, you're going to watch me shut this off. I'm going to squeeze out of the table here and walk over.
It's educational.